Update. My wife said she'd frame me for SA after I discovered her affair, so I installed cameras around the house to catch her in the act and won everything in court. I'm normally a very kind and calm man, but get me angry enough and I can become your worst nightmare. I went to see a law firm for divorce lawyers the very next day and asked for the meanest lawyer they had. I live in an at-fault state, so my wife was screwed the moment I had her affair on camera. The lawyer was initially apprehensive that I wanted to hire him so quickly until I explained the situation in more detail and even showed him some of the video footage. That's when he got a devilish grin, and we shook hands. He said he'd start right away because this was the kind of case divorce lawyers love to dig their teeth into. I had my wife served a few weeks later on a day I was working from home and the kids were in school, the eldest in kindergarten and the youngest in preschool. The papers were delivered right to my wife's hands by the local sheriff. The cameras caught it all. She looked scared while she opened the envelope, read the contents, and then lost her mind. She came running into my office to scream at me, but I remained cool and calm. I was already completely mentally checked out of our marriage. My wife wanted to argue. I just told her I made up my mind and I wanted her out of my house. I'm the only one who's ever paid into the mortgage. She screamed at me that I can't do this to her and then actually threatened to tell people I laid hands on her if I take her to court and get me fired from my job. I told her to go right ahead and make up any lie she wants. It won't help her. It's not like she wasn't planning on screwing me over since she's pregnant with her AP's baby anyway. She went wide-eyed and asked me how much I knew. I just said I knew enough and told her once again that I wanted her to leave. She refused and said it was as much her house as it was mine, then locked herself in the bedroom. Again, I saw on the bedroom cameras her having a meltdown and then pulling out her phone and calling the police. She was acting like she was in complete panic, but there was a huge smile on her face while she was doing it. She was quite the actress. I'd have believed that performance over the phone in a heartbeat if I didn't already know she was a liar. I waited for the police with the front door wide open and told them to come right in when they arrived. They were initially ready for a showdown, but the house was clean, and there were no signs of any sort of fight. My wife came running out of the bedroom and grabbed the vest of one of the officers while crying and saying I was a crazy person. I asked one of the other officers to let me show them evidence of what was really going on, and he agreed, which really startled my wife as she was not aware that I'd recorded her. I showed the officer the footage from the cameras on a laptop of my wife saying she'd make stuff up to ruin my life, and then the footage from the living room after she ran out of my office and into the master bedroom down the hall, and then the footage from the camera in the bedroom of her calling the police and lying. I'd recorded it all and from multiple angles, no less. Even though she claimed to the police I'd hit her, there was not only no marks on her but the cameras all around the house showed a completely different story. Then I handed the police a thumb drive and said it had all the video footage they needed of her calling them under false pretenses. My wife, even in the face of all this, stuck to her lie of saying I was constantly laying my hands on her and essayed her and even tried to say the recordings were illegal and therefore inadmissible. But I pointed out they are legal because they were security cameras inside of my own home and not recorded in public. My wife looked to the police and told them to do something, to which they did. She was the one put in handcuffs and she started bawling like a child. I could only sit there shaking my head. This was once the woman I'd loved for so many years. I thought she was a wonderful, intelligent, and endearing person. I couldn't have been more wrong. As the police took her away, she screamed that they couldn't do this to her but didn't resist much, otherwise, resisting would have been added to her charges. I then shut down all her credit cards that were in my name and stopped any future payments into the joint bank account, so she had to use entirely her own money to bail herself out of jail. She'd saved plenty all those years she was still working while the mortgage was only on me, so she was anything but broke. She came back for her car, which I'd taken the liberty of packing a few of her suitcases full of her clothes and some other things, and left the key on the seat so she wasn't even able to come back into the house. My wife's parents did come to speak to me a day after she got herself out of jail. Initially, they only had the backwards story she told them, which was basically the same thing she tried to tell police. Her father, especially, was ready to tackle me to the ground. Old as he is, he's big and strong. But when I asked him if he knew anything about my wife's affair or her pregnancy, he looked very surprised and gave me the chance to explain myself. I pulled out the laptop again to show my in-laws what I recorded. When they found out the truth, they were disgusted and said that they couldn't believe this person was their daughter. They apologized to me and said they'd keep in touch to help out with my kids. Then they called my wife on speaker right in front of me and confronted her about her lies. She tried to double down till they said they were with my right then and saw the recordings.